But then, the framers of the Constitution, I must say, did not envisage or did not see devolution being what it is today. It is very sad that devolution has not cured the very ills it was supposed to cure. If you read the report of the Control of Budget, you realize that only 7 billion shillings out of 55 billion was used on development. That is a very sad state of affairs. And it just points to one thing: very weak governance and very weak structures in the counties. And this goes to all counties.
We'll be getting to the depth of the Control of Budget's report. Dr. Rico, Finance Bill 2024 is what caused the county's budget to be slashed from the initial 400.1 billion Kenya shillings to 380 billion. There was, of course, issues around that, and through mediation committees of the Senate and National Assembly, the figures arrived at 387 billion. The question here is, what does the law say when we have revenue shortfalls or revenue excesses? Should the county budgets be touched?
Thank you, Chacha. You see, what we are missing here is what is the basis of the allocation. The basis of allocation is the last audited revenues of a government. Like now, for some institutions, but for county governments, it's based on what the government intends to collect. In our case, if the revenues were reduced, as per the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024, you expect everyone's budget to be slashed automatically. And that's why the revenues for all the institutions, for all the governments, both national and county governments, were brought down. In addition to 387 billion that was allocated to county governments, we are not talking about the grants of almost 50 billion. So the total allocation for county governments went to almost 430 billions. We are forgetting the grants.
You're also forgetting the own source revenue. Counties are supposed to be generating their own revenue. So if you add the grants, you add the own source revenue, plus the equitable share, then you're talking about...
If we would have had a senator here, he will actually have disputed.
So basically, we expect reduction in the budgets for all the institutions.
Ruth, you know, just after the Finance Bill of 2024 was withdrawn by President William Ruto, and Parliament, of course, ratified that, counties were targeted in terms of slashing of their budgets. Initially, already, President Ruto had signed the 400.1 billion Kenya shillings allocation to counties. Does the law provide that in case of revenue shortfalls, even at the end, even as the fiscal year is ongoing, counties' budgets should be slashed in this case, or it should remain as it is? That is the 400 billion.
I want to come from both an economic perspective and a finance perspective of defining what is a budget. A budget is something that can be adjusted because it's a forecast. It's an oversight of what is going to happen in a certain period of time. And in this case, say, for example, the next financial year. We have seen previously, especially where there has been major issue, like, for example, early in this year, we had floods. And when there was floods, there was a lot of adjustments of the budget to cater for those flood issues. So budget, as much as it goes through the normal course to go all through the parliamentary issues to all the way to the presidential assent, it can be adjusted. It doesn't mean it's it's not static. It can be adjusted. That is one. When I take you back to when the Finance Bill 2024 was rejected by the president, or people forced the president to reject that finance bill, what happened is that we saw a few counties, not all, adjusting and coming back and saying. However, one of the things that you will notice, Chacha, is that when it comes to this country, and you and I can bear witness, even in terms of projection, we really haven't deep dived so much in what the counties are doing. As you were talking, as actually Mheshimiwa was talking, I was just talking to Daktari and just trying to show him the skewing of one of the counties, how they, the vis-a-vis of their recurrent and also their developmental expenditure, which does not match because it's not even a 1% of what the recurrent expenditure is. Then how then do we then define budget based on what the legislature have come and said, that we have grants, we have the income we earn, and the income that is being earned by different counties is different based on the economic activities that each county does. But I think the major problem here, Chacha, let me tell you, the major problem is not the income that the counties are earning or how much they're being given by the government. The major problem of counties is not being actually, let me say, the main problem is them not being so focused on developmental agenda. Let's just be clear.
Well, we'll actually be getting to that on how much they spent on development in the first quarter of this fiscal year. Honorable Manduko cited here on, of course, counties should rely on their own source revenue rather than the equitable share. Now, according to the Control of Budgets report, it has revealed that counties generated 12.68 billion Kenya shillings, which is 15% of the annual target of 85.22 billion Kenya shillings. Just to put this into perspective, for instance, Nairobi County, which has a budget of 43 billion Kenya shillings, with a target of 20 billion in terms of own source revenue, with the rest, of course, coming from the equitable share, for instance, has only collected 2.26 billion in the first 3 months of this fiscal year. That is in July, August, and September, against an annual target of 20 billion Kenya shillings. So if the trend is anything to go by, in this case, 2.2 billion Kenya shillings times 4, that is 4 quarters of this fiscal year, that will be around 8 billion Kenya shillings. So there is a likelihood Nairobi County could experience a revenue shortfall of 12 billion Kenya shillings. Are counties overprojecting, or is it that they're collecting much and not reporting the same?
I think first let me clarify something. It may not be accurate to assume that the collection will be prorated because we know, like, for example, in Nairobi County, most of the licenses fall due in January. So it is possible that in the third quarter, which starts from January to April, we would see an upsurge of revenue, and it's possible that they may meet those targets. But having said that, let me also clarify that most counties, if the county governors were serious and put systems in place, and Nairobi in particular, 20 billion is collectible. All they have to do is have efficient collection systems, have a transparent regime, and leverage on IT. But of course, we know most of these counties use that own source revenue as an avenue for stealing the money. I know counties where the governors insist, for example, that hospital bills be paid to some till, some M-Pesa till, and we know that this till goes to some other accounts. That is where we should be focusing on, that we should seal the loopholes. Because this country, collecting 85 billion as own source revenue across the country is little money. It is collectable. I can tell you.
The same national government collects from the same counties.
Yes.
Over 2 trillion.
And the passage of the, recently the president assented to the ratings bill, which now standardizes the rates on land and other revenue. And if you look at the foundation of that bill, you realize that if this country was run properly, even that 85 billion is a drop in the ocean. It is possible. Nairobi County itself, in my opinion, should collect up to 50 billion if they were serious per year.
Just to narrow down to your county, that is where you come from, Kisii County, they have a total target of 2.2 billion Kenya shillings in terms of on-source revenue. So far, they have only generated 270 million Kenya shillings. Are you hopeful that they will attain their OSOS revenue targets?
Current governance structure of Kisii County, given the level of competence that Kisii County has, it is not possible that they raise that money.
Competence or incompetence?
The level of competence, I mean, that is positive or negative. But basically what I'm saying is that there are a bunch of incompetent people working towards raising that revenue. They will not raise that revenue, and that you can take to the bank. Why? Because they have not installed systems that are going to be efficient in revenue collection. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. Today, if you go to Kisii County, my friend, you will be looking for a development project that you will not see. If you go to any hospital in Kisii County today, you will not find medicine, at least where I come from. In my constituency, I've got Gesusu Hospital and Ibacho Hospital. I'll show you messages from my constituents who tell me that they went to the hospital and there was no medicine. The maternity wings are not working. The doctors are not motivated. So it's not possible that they can raise this money.
We shift gears from Kisii County to Turkana County. How about Dr. John Ariko? You come from Turkana South as an MP there. Now, your county...
And a former county chief officer finance.
Chief officer, that is the
Finance.
CEO, finance, more of a PS in the national government. Now, in Turkana County, you have an on-source revenue target of 320 million Kenya shillings. So far, the county only collected 67 million Kenya shillings. Could this be underreported? Maybe the money is collected in cash and not remitted to the accounts.
Chacha, if you look at the report for Turkana County government on source revenue in the year FY 2023, it was reported that they had collected over 200 or 500 million. I want to tell you that was as a result of a windfall from the revenues that were outstanding for Lokichar Oil Basin. Remember, there is what we call Lokichar Oil Basin. Some money were accruing for Turkana County government or the community. So they were paid 250-something million. So that's what I call a windfall, because they had not foreseen that. But what I can tell you, Turkana County will not collect more than 240 million in this coming year.
But they have
from
the
experience
at 320 million.
Yeah, that's just the budget. And that's what will result to pending bills, because they have already budgeted for this money and they have already contracted or committed the government against this money. So that will result into the pending bills. On-source revenue is dependent on economic activities for that particular county. If you have few economic activities, automatically it will generate less for the county. Turkana County, we don't have so much to collect, not unless we start producing oil for this government, for Kenya. And we'll be reducing the issues of shilling, depreciation of the shilling, appreciation of the shilling, or exporting oil. We are importing oil.
Why is that not happening so far?
Yeah, but probably by next year, we'll start selling oil.
Well, Ruth, from an economist perspective, here we have highlighted on how much Kisii County, for instance, targets to collect 2.2 billion. They have only collected to 70 million, according to Horbo Manduku. There is a likelihood they will not meet their targets. Similar to Turkana, where they have a 320 million target, so far 67 million. Also citing that if that goes, maybe they can only hit 200 million. So here we're talking about revenue shortfalls for counties. Nairobi County, for instance, in the last fiscal year of 2023-2024, with a target of 18 billion, they only collected 12 billion. But what they sold to Kenyans was, we've hit a high of 12 billion. But let's talk about the fiscal or the revenue shortfall that is there of about 6 billion. That, of course, created a fiscal deficit. And usually how to cure that, it's either by slashing the budget or that automatically translates to pending bills. In this case, Nairobi County with a target of 20 billion. If at all it hits, let's say 12 billion, there is a shortfall of 8 billion. Are we staring at counties accumulating more pending bills? Because I'm sure, just compared to the national government, usually they don't have a lot of supplementary budgets, if I'm not wrong.
Thank you, Chacha. Comparing, I like the way you've compared Nairobi and also mentioned about Kisii. And those two, for example, those two counties apparently are very productive counties. For Nairobi to say they have collected 12 billion, Chacha, just be sure it has already surpassed the 18 billion somewhere.
So that is just what has been reported.
Yes, because of something we are calling the, Mheshimiwa was calling the gaps in terms of ensuring that they have systems that ensure they tighten up the loophole where the revenue is collected to ensure that everything goes to the same pot. If you can remember, one of the things actually that counties have done well, but also done not so well, is automation of their revenue issues. And as much as they've done that, one of the things that maybe, I don't know if this is something that the Auditor General normally audit, is a systems audit. And system audit is one of the things that normally can be overlooked. And you know, system audit is just to ensure that this is the bank account revenue supposed to be collected, and it's where it's going, because automation, which Kenyans are very good in automation, and actually government is really good in automation, can still work for or against. That aside, let's also look at the economic activities that has also been mentioned. I've never seen, I haven't seen like the county leadership are normally very focused in really giving back to their people to ensure that they spur more economic activities so that they can earn more. I know you have asked Daktari in terms of the oil in Turkana, and Daktari, I think you should explain better in terms of why that has not earned government, based on the fact that we saw a lot of hype in the last few years. Why hasn't that happened? You know, there needs to be also a clear that counties have not come properly to support its people in terms of economic activities. The other thing also, because revenue is where this leadership normally comes and say that when they come on board, they are supposed to look at the areas that they can be able to increase economic activity for them to earn more. But you have heard from maybe the mention of Kisii, clearly there is no, Mheshimiwa has said there is no clear expertise to be able to raise that kind of money. Not that the county cannot be able to produce that. There is capability, but there is no goodwill to be able to do that. Well, let me just finish, Chacha. With that in mind, even as we speak about revenue shortages, that is where we are having very bad customer satisfaction, especially on the basic services that should be given to counties. And one of it is education, and two is medical areas. Why are we saying that? If education is not taken into consideration and if it's not given the importance that it has, well, and also health, it means that generations to come are going to really suffer, even in those counties, meaning that people are dying, people are going through a very hard time, and there is no way they can be able to even increase income or become better from in whatever they do economically for them to give back to the counties. And I think it's ruining this country in many ways.
Well, Dr. Manduko, on the total expenditure for counties within the 3 months of this fiscal year, that is July, August, and September, counties spent a whopping 55.6 billion Kenya shillings. And on how much was channeled to recurrent expenditure, that is 48 billion. Only 6 billion Kenya shillings was spent on development. In this case, these are the counties that did not bother to spend even a coin towards development. Nairobi County, Kisii County, Nyandarua County, Baringo County, and 6 others. Your county is there, where you hail from. Yes. How comes we have a budget, yet we have no allocation towards development, despite other counties having spent a total of 6.7 billion, counties like Nairobi and Kisii, which are populated, while residents there expect development, there is zero allocation towards that. Are you surprised by these figures?
The report from the control of budget, more so as regards to the non-expenditure of any money by my county Kisii, is a very sad reality, and which is a wake-up call to the people of Kisii, that we have incompetence, and I want to say the word incompetence in capital in our county. How come you are given money to spend on development and you can't? At the same time, you don't have medicine in hospitals. You have not initiated any value addition project in the agricultural food chain. And we know that Kisii is a very rich agricultural area. You have not started a single industry or even expanded those that are existing. We cannot pride ourselves in any infrastructure for the early childhood development, ECD classes, which are very well known as devolved functions. If you come to Kisii County today, the 9 members of parliament will show you what they have done with the little CDF, Constituency Development Fund. Why? Because in the CDF, there's a ceiling on recurrent expenditure of 6%. You cannot spend more than 6% of that money on recurrent expenditure. If you come to my constituency, Nyaribari Masaba, I can proudly show you what I have done in the last 2 years
but the
with the CDF.
With a budget of 14 billion.
But the county with a budget of 14 billion shillings in my constituency, zero. I can tell you in other constituencies, zero. People of Kisii need to wake up and realize that they've been taken for a ride. And this is not a love affair. We must face this head on. We have competent people in the county, but they have been sidelined on account of belonging to other political arrangements. This is not about politics. It's about our future, about our children, and about our great-grandchildren. Kisii County is endowed with natural beauty, rainfall throughout the year, good soils, good expertise, but the leadership has a problem. And this problem is basically capacity.
Well, we are due for a short commercial break, but just to name and shame the counties that spent zero allocation towards development: Baringo County, Elgeyo Marakwet, Kajiado, Kisii, Lamu, Nairobi, Nyandarua, Tana River, Uasin Gishu, and West Pokot. In other words, in so far what they have spent, that is the billions of shillings they have spent, went to the recurrent expenditure. Basically, this means in the 3 months, it was spent on salaries, allowances, tea, and mandazi. We take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
When it's a Saturday, there's only one entertainment show in East and Central Africa. Arena 254.